We're here in the morning show today to talk about all the great things going on in the Richland School District. We have Superintendent Steve Board on for his monthly visit, but he's brought along some friends today. We have Sean Josem here. We'll talk about what he does as Director of Special Education, and Lisa Goff, school psychologist, and many other hats as well. Steve, good morning. How you doing?
Great morning. Happy New Year to you. And I'm doing great, and it's great to be back on again.
Yeah, it is. Good to have you here. Those months go by pretty fast, and here we are. Today is kind of a significant day for the district, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, first of all, it's been difficult for me the last 10 days to try to get in the habit of writing 2025 on dates. It's just,
Me too.
Things have just flown by, but it's been crazy. But yeah, today is a big day for all districts in Wisconsin. We talk a lot about our enrollment numbers and the official enrollment counts that happen in the fall and September, but a lot of people don't necessarily understand that the Department of Public Education instruction also has a second official count, and that's the second Friday in January count, and today is the second Friday in January. And so all of the districts across the state of Wisconsin will be taking their second official enrollment count, and this is a big day for us because we've put a lot of emphasis on trying to not only retain our current students, but make our school district a place where students want to come, open up to a lot of alternative education options, and provide a lot of opportunities for students. And we've seen our numbers increase. And so today is kind of a day where we get to kind of solidify that. And did we increase? Have we increased from the fall? Where are we at from this year over last year? All signs are pointing to our numbers continuing to trend upwards, which is great. But today will be a nice day to figure out once all the dust settles sometime next week on where we truly ended up from an enrollment standpoint. And of course, as you and I have talked about before, enrollment drives everything for school districts, right? It drives revenue, which then drives what we can do and what we can offer our students in terms of staffing and programming and different things like that. So today's a big, big day. It's going to have a direct impact on what our enrollment numbers that are reported DPI have, because what DPI will do is they'll take the average of the September count and the January count, and that becomes your official 24-25 count, which will then come into play next year when we get a per pupil allocation from the state. And there's a lot of variables and unknowns there at this point as well, because Governor Evers and the state legislation will be working on a new biennial budget this July. Last year at this time, a lot of the variables were known, right? Because we were in the second year of a biennial budget, and so we knew exactly what our per pupil increase was going to be. We knew exactly what spending was going to be. When we're in these years where we don't know what the 25-26 budgets look like at the state level, therefore schools across the state don't really know what they're going to get for school spending. They don't know what their revenue limits are going to be. We don't know if there's going to be cuts to education. Most signs since COVID are pointing towards legislation making a commitment to putting more funding into education, but how they get there is always a political drama that happens every year, and we don't know how that's all going to shake out. Governor Evers, 2 years ago, used his line item veto pen to put into place a $325 per pupil increase year over year for, I believe it's like the next 400 years or something crazy like that. But we also know that there was a period of time from 2012 to 2020 where schools got zero increase in per pupil increasing. So we don't know what the state budget's going to be. We're hoping that the $325 or more per pupil increase applies once July 1st rolls around. And this is why it's difficult for schools, because the state's looking at budgets in the future. Schools have to have staffing plans established this spring, right? And they're operating on assumptions that they don't even know what's going to happen at the state level. And so it's never really been a real smooth process when we're in the middle of these biennial budgets at the state level, because we have to make so many assumptions. But to tie that all together, our enrollments are a huge deal. We have a graduating class, 2025 graduating class of about 100 students. We're expecting our 4K enrollments to be steady at around 65. But that's still a 35 student decrease, right? For year over year, we're losing 100, we're bringing in 65. Again, we've talked before, we've got these 2 or 3 classes at the highest levels, grades 10, 11, 12, that are at our highest enrollment. And then there's a kind of a student enrollment cliff, and all of our classes from 9th grade on down are in the 80s or less, okay? So we're kind of expecting a drop of about 35 students, which would typically be a decrease in revenue. But we're hoping that per pupil increase, the $325, is going to offset that. And so we're operating with the assumptions that we're going to be pretty budget neutral for next year. And by being budget neutral, then we're planning on being staff neutral as well. So we're not anticipating having to do any layoffs, do any cuts. I know that there's a lot of school districts around our area. In fact, our high school principals came back from a conference meeting yesterday, and a very, very common theme from all of the other schools, or a majority of the other schools, was the real possibility of having to make staffing cuts in other school districts. And I don't think we're going to have to be in that situation. So that's great. That's great for our staff. It's great for continuity of our students. It's great for our community. With that being said, we're always looking at ways to make our process and our people more efficient. Okay, and so that doesn't mean that we won't have some reconfiguration, right? We sometimes have to slide people to other positions. They might not necessarily always be doing exactly what they're doing, but we don't anticipate having to make staffing cuts. And then the other variable at a local level, Phil, is that and we've talked before about the alternative education options that we have at Richland Center. I'm a big proponent of finding different ways to meet students where they're at. And so continually having conversations about what does alternative education look like for different students at different age levels with different struggles, whether that be behavioral, mental health, anxiety, health-related. Again, not all students learn in the traditional brick and mortar, sit in a desk, lecture, listen, homework, rinse and repeat the next day. Not all students operate in that. In fact, many students don't. Many students survive in that format, but not necessarily students don't thrive in that. And so I think it's really important for our school and school districts across the nation really to be adapting to find out what are the best ways we can meet students where they're at. So with that, we're going to continue to look at other ways to try to meet students' needs. Maybe some changes for next year, might be 26, 27, might not be any, but we're going to continue to evaluate what we're doing and are we doing it the best way possible. So all of that kind of wraps in together, right? It all starts from enrollment because, again, enrollment drives revenue. Revenue drives what we're able to do. We think we're going to be budget neutral for next year. Again, tremendous support and appreciative of the support of our community from the referendum that they passed last April. That's going to allow us to continue to do these things and continue to be stable, right? We don't have a lot of extra money, but I do think we have enough finances due to that support from the community that we're going to be able to continue to move forward, make our school district a district of envy, make our school district one that our community can be proud of, and do that without having to make any staffing cuts.
In concerning the pupil count, it surprises me a little bit that they do it now because it's not the second semester yet, right? I mean, do you have a different number sometimes at the beginning of a next semester or not?
There are times when that happens. We do have students that graduate at second semester. I don't know historically if, how that all was originally created. Way back in the day, probably when you and I went to school, we were starting school in mid-August, right, around that August 20th date. So I don't know if the second Friday in January started way back then, when maybe that did align with the second semester a little more closely because students or schools were starting earlier, or if it's intentional to do it before students that might graduate early, are off the books, so to speak, and so you get an opportunity to count those. I really don't know the history behind it, but it is interesting. And, the Richland School District, I'm sure many school districts in Southwest Wisconsin are similar to that. We're a very transient community. We have a lot of students that are coming and going all the time, right? And while we may only change from the fall student count to the January student count, we might only see a difference of 4 or 5 students. it would not surprise me if you told me, and I think this would be interesting data to try to find out, but it would not surprise me if you told me that, yeah, we ended up with a net difference of 4 students, okay, but we actually had 30 students coming and going, right? There's a lot of students in our district that come and go. And our folks here, Mr. Josem and Ms. Goff, will, they're leaders of our pupil services. That directly affects them, right? And they can talk a little bit more about that and how we handle students that are coming into our district, leaving our district, because we want to make sure that they're in a spot where they can be educated, be successful, and call Richland Center their home. So it is an interesting time of year.
It is. Well, that's a good transition. Let's bring them into the conversation.
Sounds great. I appreciate the fact that you called them my friends, because they don't always admit that. So now it's on the air. So
sounds good. Well, Lisa, pupil services. Can you describe what that is?
So pupil services would be our school counselors, our school nurse, myself, anybody else? That would be about it. But we're there to help support the students in various ways.
Okay. And you are a school psychologist.
Yes.
But you wear many hats, as I mentioned at the beginning. So.
And I get involved in everything. So I am the coordinator of Check and Connect. I help within the multi-tiered systems of support, so MTSS or RTI. I help within that. I help support the special ed world quite a bit, whether it's at meetings or testing or seeing students or just with the special ed teachers as well. Also with Mr. Josem, him and I tend to brainstorm ideas. We kind of just sit and talk about different topics, just trying to figure out a solution.
When Steve was talking about the number of students that come in and out, you were shaking your head. So that is pretty common that you have quite a turnover of students through the year, don't you?
We have, lots of kids that will come in just because of the community. I am the homeless liaison as well. So families or mothers will come in and like with our shelters, so they will start there. Sometimes they transition out of the community. Other times they might find housing within our community as well and stay longer. So I help support that area as well in regards to resources throughout the year, depending on what the family needs.
Homelessness is a real issue in our area, isn't it?
Yes, probably throughout the state. It's just there is definitely there just isn't enough housing available, and it's expensive. And if you're not working, it's figuring out where do we go with our family, with our kids, and be able to afford it and then get a job and transportation, all of that. So housing is definitely a concern all over the place.
As a district, then, what are some things that you do or can do, in helping the family or getting them in the right direction?
One of the things is just like once the kids are enrolled in school, I can help support the kids here in school, whether it's through lunch and breakfast or school supplies. I do also have connections with families, like if they need clothing, furniture. I have a resource guide that I help or that I give to families, and that way then they can reach out to other, such as like Southwest CAP, HHS can also help support. So I'm part of like coalitions, like we've got a homeless coalition here in Richland Center, so I'm part of that. So then I know what other resources are available to help these families. If they're looking for work, there's programs that they can be connected with in regards to that as well.
Sean Josem, how long have you been in education?
Well, I've been here in Richland Center since '02. So for the first 10 years of that, I was actually the school psychologist. And after that, the last 12 years have been in this position, special ed director.
How things have changed in that time in your field.
It has, yes. Obviously, even the medical field has changed. So historically, many of the students that may not have gone to a public school because of some of their difficulties, disorders, impairments are now coming into our schools, and we're having to meet their needs, which is great. But it also provides some difficult situations sometimes to meet their needs.
Special ed is kind of a blanket statement because there are a lot of different avenues, right?
Yeah, there is. I mean, special education. I mean, special means different, unique, individualized. And I think sometimes when people think about special ed, they may think about historically back in the day, you know, those were those kids that went to that special room. But really, special education is much more than that. Typically, people think, well, a special ed student is a student with a learning disability. But that's really only one of 12 areas where a student can qualify under. We have students who are blind. We have students who are visually impaired, hearing impaired. We have students who are both deaf and blind, so a double combination. We have students at our lower levels, our 3, 4, 5-year-olds, usually typically fall under what's called the significant developmental delay area. Other health impairment, which is kind of encompassing our students with ADHD, anxiety, those kinds of things. We have a large percentage in our district of students who are on the autism spectrum. I'd say probably almost 20% of our special ed kids are somewhere on the spectrum. I think certainly autism is a diagnosis that's increased over the years, but I think our district, for whatever reason, has probably a higher percentage of students on the spectrum than maybe some of the other districts. We have students who are orthopedically impaired. We have students who have emotional behavioral disabilities. So when you think of a special ed student, it's not really a one-size-fits-all. I mean, they can fall under any of those categories, and they certainly have what's called an individual education plan, and that's unique. So not every student has the same services, receives the same accommodations, those kinds of things. We get referrals from anyone, whether it's parents, teachers, community members, physicians sometimes. And I'm just going to touch a little bit on that because sometimes there's a misperception about when a parent maybe goes to see their doctor, their physician. And through that discussion, through that appointment, the doctor may say, well, I think your child may need an IEP based on this diagnosis. And sometimes parents feel, well, since I have that information from the doctor, then my child automatically qualifies for an IEP, and it's something that happens right away. Well, that's not quite true because for us, we have to adhere to the Department of Public Instruction criteria. So if you have a child and the doctor may say, well, your child sounds like they might have a learning disability, they should probably have an IEP. Well, the DPI has certain criteria that we have to adhere to, and sometimes the student doesn't qualify based on that criteria. So that's sometimes a difficult conversation to have with parents because I think the medical field has a certain clout. I mean, we think if we have a diagnosis and we get a prescription, then we have to kind of follow that. But I would say for the most part, those kind of conversations go smoothly. Parents certainly understand that there are criteria, processes that we have to follow for that student in order to qualify for services.
So you don't actually diagnose, but you do some work in terms of screening to see what level we're talking about,
right,
things like that?
Right. I mean, obviously, Lisa is certainly a part of that. We do all kinds of different testings and screenings based on the area of impairment we feel the child is going to qualify under.
It's amazing sometimes you may have a student excelling in several areas, but maybe deficient in one area.
Yeah, right? I mean, we certainly have some students who could be dually. We could have a student who's considered gifted and talented, but still have a learning disability. I mean, that is possible. So you have the two extremes. So yeah, you're right.
Do you have students that have helpers with them, so
yes.
to speak, as well?
Yep.
An aid?
Yep. So depending on the student's needs, we do have teacher's aides, classroom aides that go with those students. Some have one-to-one based on their impairment or their disability. But yeah, it's really kind of an all hands on deck. Special ed teachers quite often go into the regular ed classroom. More at the high school, we do a co-teaching model. That seems to help. But then we also have specialized instruction where students do actually go to a different classroom and receive that individualized education. I mean, our goal is to provide what's called least restrictive environment, which means we want your child to have as much exposure to regular ed as we can. But there are some times when they need specialized instruction or specialized service, like occupational therapy or speech and language or something like that.
Can they get that at the district then, or do they go elsewhere for those kind of things?
Certainly, it's a process. Students have to qualify; they have to meet criteria in order to get speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, those kinds of things. Sometimes, if they don't, then it's kind of up to the parent to maybe take them to the hospital as far as outpatient therapy goes.
And you're talking about the whole district, not just the high school then, right?
The entire district, yep.
So you're the director for the whole works then?
Yep,
so.
Ages 3 through 21 is what we serve,
Wow.
So yeah.
That's quite an age group.
It is, yeah. We have, I think, over, at the last counts, over 232 kids, I think, in the district that have an IEP. We have students who, based on their impairment, may only just need some kind of classroom accommodation. And sometimes those students fall under what's called the 504 plan. And that 504 comes from, I think, the 1973, I might be wrong in the date, Rehabilitation Act, which means essentially you can't discriminate against people in the workforce based on their disability. And Section 504 of that is really what schools have to adhere to, as far as we have to provide an equal playing field for students who have disabilities.
How long have you been with the district, Lisa?
9 years this year.
9 years this year.
Yep.
Yeah. And your role has changed a little bit through those years too.
It has, and I think hopefully I'm adapting as we see the needs arise, and things are changing with our students, with just education in general, whenever they bring in such as like Act 20, and just being up to date on that and helping support our title department in regards to new screeners that have come out recently and all of that. So
I know you have some family events from time to time. Do you have any coming up here in the near future?
Yes, we have Strengthening Families. Last year we did this twice in the school year. This year we're only doing it once. So we do have that coming up the beginning of March. Runs for 7 weeks. We will be starting at 5:30 with a meal. And then at 6 o'clock we start the program, and it runs until 8 o'clock. So we are looking for families with students ages 10 to 14 to sign up, and they can call me at the primary school to sign up. But this is a program that is no cost to the parents or to the family. So yeah, it's I think it's a very valuable program in regards to just helping the family become a stronger unit together.
It starts at home, doesn't it?
It does. And some of those skills can also be brought into the school setting as well. We do have, at the primary school particularly, we have a student success team. So teachers can bring concerns that they have with students. And so to me, that's just a bigger picture of bringing all of those pieces together.
When you have a Strengthening Family Night, then what are some things you do at that?
Well, the students with the students, it's mostly game-based. So they come in and they play some games, and they do an activity together. But it's each night there's a specific topic that we talk about. And one of the big things is helping these students understand that they can say no to their friends, whether their friends, maybe are drinking or any, things like that, vaping, and giving them the tools to be able to stand up to their friends and not be mean or unkind and say, no, I can't be friends with you, but just helping their friends understand this is not okay. And so we give them the tools to be able to tell their friends no, and let's go do something else instead of this particular behavior that is probably going to get them into trouble. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the fun nights that we have, because we actually have the parents then act as the student, and the student gets to act as the parent, and so they kind of reverse those roles and try and get their student to, no, you need to go do other things. And these parents in the past have definitely given these students a challenge to figure out how to get them to not do this poor behavior.
That would be fun to watch, I think.
It is. It's very entertaining to watch, but very powerful. Very powerful to watch between the student and so it's like their child is trying to tell them, no, you can't do this. And I think it gives everybody a better perspective of this is what my parents go through, but also for, the parent, it's kind of like, yeah, I can now give my child a little bit of what I'm trying to deal with.
You recently had a couple of gentlemen come through that put on like a scenario.
Yep,
and
box out bullying.
Box out bullying. I couldn't think of the title because they were here, but that must have been a fun event as well.
Yeah, and each year it's different. The last 2 years it's been somebody different, and they're very engaging. And what I particularly like about that program is, yes, they're presenting at the primary school, the intermediate, and 7th and 8th graders, but they adapt the show and the content for their age range. And they do such a phenomenal job, and they're very engaging with the students, and they engage the staff as well. And I think just the way they are helping kids understand, that you can say no and you have a voice and all of that, and bullying is not okay. I think they do it very well.
We're talking to members of the Richland District, and we'll have more coming up here on our Friday morning show after these words. Welcome back to the morning show from WRCO Radio. Good to be in the studio here with guests Sean Josem, Lisa Goff, and Richland Superintendent Steve Board. Steve, as we talk here, I guess the deadline is passed for school board if you'd like to run, but you could still write it in if you wanted to, right?
That's exactly correct. Yep. So January 7th at 5 o'clock here this past Tuesday was the statewide official deadline to declare candidacy for school board elections in April 1st. If there's enough, then there's a primary in February. We didn't have enough. We had 2 seats that were open. We had it's an Area 2 West. It's essentially the Village of Boaz and some townships to the west of the city of Richland Center, not within the city limits. There was 1 seat open there. Aaron Umbihan, our current board president, has decided to rerun for that, and there were no other folks that filled out an application to do that. So he will be running unopposed. Again, as you mentioned, there's certainly a possibility for a writing candidate, and folks living in that area can still do that. But Aaron Umbihan will be an incumbent and be shown on the ballot representing that Area 2 West area. And then the other seat that was open is a Richland City of Richland Center seat. We have a couple of seats that you have to reside in the city. We have an Area West and Area East, and then there's a few at-large positions on our board. So this is a city-specific seat. It's currently held by Mr. Neil Huntemer. Mr. Huntemer has served out his term, and he has decided to not seek another term for election, and so he will not be on the ballot. We did have one candidate declare their candidacy. Brian Miller, who lives in the city, will be running, and so his name will be on the ballot. And again, any write-ins that live in the city can certainly do that as well. There's a process that they have to declare to be an official write-in candidate, but if anybody has any interest in that, they can certainly pop up or call the district office and talk to myself or Laura Steele, and we'll talk them through the process. But 2 names on the ballot for 2 seats. Aaron Umbihan, our incumbent, will be for Area 2 West, and then Brian Miller will be the lone name on the ballot for the city seat. And again, that'll be on April 1st. There will be no primary needed, so it should be a relatively smooth election cycle this time around, at least as it relates to the Richland School District and the board. And then those folks who get elected, they will take their seat officially. I believe it's April 27th, the last Monday in April, and that'll be the start of their official term.
That time's coming. Boy, time goes by fast, doesn't it?
It sure does. It just flies by. It'll be here before we know it.
And you haven't been calling me about bad weather this year.
Isn't that nice? Yes.
Sure.
Hopefully we can keep that trend continuing.
We'll hope so anyway.
Yeah, it's always, now until really mid-March, really, when you can get a lot of different weather situations, whether it be cold weather, snow, ice. In fact, sometimes later in the winter, and you get into the March where the temperatures warm up just a little bit, precipitation when it's 10 degrees out is a lot different than when there's precipitation and it's 30, 31, 32 degrees out. You can get some really wet, heavy, high accumulation, freezing rain, ice, that whole mixture, and that's really where a lot of the danger resides. So the forecast right now looks like it's promising. So hopefully we can get through January without any big hiccups, and then February is a short month, and then we're into March, and spring break will be here before you know it, and we'll be talking about graduation. So it's right around the corner. No weather delays from here on out. Although the kids there are like, can we just have a snow day in February, right? So, just to get a little bit of a break. This actually is a grind right now, right? You mentioned it earlier, but this is a time of year where there's not a lot of breaks, right? We get Martin Luther King Jr. Day off, and then in a couple Mondays here, next Monday, I guess, actually, no, a week from Monday. And then we really don't have a lot of breaks until spring break, which is at the end of March. So it's a time of year where a lot of routines are established, a lot of learning happens, but it does become really a grind. And so it's important for all of our families to stay diligent and stay motivated and get them to school.
The state convention is coming up here this next semester too. Yeah,
every January, 3 statewide organizations, WASB, which is the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. That's the association that many school boards, our school board included, that's their association. WASDA, which is the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators, Superintendents, and other district administration, is part of that association. And then WASBO, Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials. Those 3 statewide entities all come together, and they put on what's known as the Wisconsin State Education Convention. It's held every year. As far as I can remember, it's always been in Milwaukee. It's a 4-day event where there is a lot of learning, a lot of opportunity to network. It is for administrators, it is for school board members, it is for people who are making high-level decisions within the school district. And this year, starts on January 21st, that Tuesday, goes through Friday the 24th. Keynote speakers every day. There are dozens and dozens of different breakout sessions where different members, depending on their background and their role in the district, can get different information. As a superintendent, I will have different things that are more specific to superintendents, maybe legal updates that are coming down the road, things like that are important for me. Mr. Joe Sem may have special education updates, pupil service updates that he may be looking at attending. There'll be some business-related, HR-related, employment, staffing sessions that they'll have. They'll also have a lot of sessions specifically for board members. And so this year, the Richland School District, we're taking 6 members of our leadership team down as administrators, myself, Mr. Joe Sem, Dr. Sherry Johnson, and then our Marketing Communications Director, Carrie Stoltz, will be going down, as well as 2 board members. Board member Robin Dickman and board member Sheila Troxel will be attending as well. So we'll all meet down there. We'll all get a plan of attack. We'll break out into different sessions. We usually meet every night and have a meal together, talk about the day. Really, really a good opportunity to really talk a lot about what's going on in our school district, what we're learning. Hey, I heard this. How would that fit into our model that we're currently doing? Can we do that better? All of those things that just help make our school district better and enhance our programming. A lot of those ideas come from when you hear something at a session, then you talk about it with your team of people, and you just start brainstorming. As Lisa mentioned earlier, that her and Sean do as pupil services, we're doing that now at a district level as we're going to these events. And it's really a powerful event. We've had, the opportunity to have our band perform down at the state convention in recent years. So things like that are going on as well. I mentioned the keynote speakers, but really just a lot of good collaboration and all education focused events. event. So I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm excited to be part of that team that's going down there and moving our district forward. And a lot of that will start by planting the seed at that convention.
Awesome. Sean, it probably recharges the battery a little bit, those kind of events, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, certainly it's always a learning experience. I mean, we don't have all of the knowledge that we need to have it all the time. So I think that I went to the school board conference last year and it was beneficial, and again going this year because there's always something new to learn.
Let's talk. We wanted to kind of touch base with you about birth to 3. Can you describe that?
Certainly. So obviously the school district educates students 3 through 21, like I indicated in the previous segment, but it really is a kind of a community approach. So quite often we receive students from the county's Birth to 3 program, which provides services for children who are under the age of 3 because of some impairment or difficulty. And then those students transition into our early childhood program at the age of 3. We also work with the Head Start program, working with them with students who have challenges, so to speak. So it really is kind of a community effort to kind of find children in our community that struggle for whatever reason.
A screening is coming up for the district, isn't it?
It is, yes. I'm glad that you asked that. So obviously we evaluate students all the time, but we really have an event coming up, which is our 4K screening. So it's not only for our 4K incoming 4K students, but it's also an opportunity for parents to bring in their 3 and 4-year-olds to get evaluated to see if they would qualify for special education. And that event is a little later this year than it typically is. It's right after our spring break, and our spring break is late this year, but I think the 4K screening is April 7th, the first Monday in April, through April 10th or 11th, Thursday or Friday.
That's for all students.
It is for all students, yep.
But if a parent has a concern, maybe their child's speech is a bit delayed and things like that, that's when they should reach out?
Absolutely. Yep. Sure. And I think there is either a sign-up opportunity, or if they have questions, they can call Amy Hardy at the primary school. She kind of heads that screening.
Some of those things that you can nip in the bud, so to speak, right?
Right.
Indeed.
Yep.
Lisa, we wanted to come back and talk to you a little bit about the Check-in Connect program.
Yep.
Yeah.
Check-in Connect. So I'm the coordinator for that program, and we are in year 2. This year, I've got 16 mentors, and they are mentoring 17 students. And pretty excited because we do have 2 kids who will be graduating early. And I think it's probably one of those, it's not like an easy, look, they're going to graduate early. This, from my understanding, it's going to go right up until probably the last minute to see if they're going to be graduating or not. But exciting in the sense of those students being a part of our program. So they've been this would be their second year in the Check and Connect program. And between, and it's not just the mentor, but it's kind of like, the special ed staff as well as the mentor, just working pretty hard to get the student on track and to be able to graduate early. So pretty excited about that we're having. And at this point, from last year and this year, we've had all our kids who have been seniors as part of the program, they have graduated, which is part of where this program came from, because our district did get identified in regards to our graduation rate. And so that's where this program came out of, in regards to working at relationships. And we know that when kids have relationships at school, they're more apt to come to school, so their attendance improves. And when their attendance improves, chances are their grades are going to improve as well. And so that's where the mentoring comes in, because those are areas that the mentors track with the mentees on a weekly basis.
Where does the mentors, where do they come from then?
The mentors actually are staff members up at the high school. This year I've got a few that I've actually got an individual from the intermediate school who was interested in mentoring. And then I've got a past employee who is continuing mentoring with her students. So, and I've actually got, I had two positions approved, so I can actually recruit 2 more mentors, which right now I've got probably at least a handful of mentors that I'm going to go pester. individuals who I want to be mentors, because I think they would be a good fit for some of these kids.
That works out well because a lot of times the students probably don't want to let them down, I mean...
Yes and no. Yes and no. We've just had some interesting, I meet with the mentors on a monthly basis, and I always check in with all of them and ask them for updates or concerns, or if they have some neat stories and stuff like that. So I have to share one with you. This year, what we've planned is quarterly get together between the mentors and the mentees. So at the beginning of the year, we took all the mentees down to Dario, and we learned that within the time frame we had, we really hustled to get there, get their ice cream, and get them back in time, because it's a little bit longer walk than I had anticipated. But one of the neat stories that came out of that, so I've got a mentor and a mentee, and the mentee was all last year was like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't like this mentor. Really gave them a hard time. And this year, they walked down to the Dario with us, and the mentee was like, are you going to be okay? Can you make it? And I mean, just the care and concern that the mentee was showing to the mentor was just, and I mean, the whole attitude of this mentee was just different this year. So it's just fun to see. He actually now seeks out his mentor this year, where last year was like, don't bother me. So it's stories like that and those relationships that are being built that is just, I think, the funnest part of this entire program. And we had a Christmas get-together 2 weeks ago, or last week we did. So we had another group that came in, and they hosted a Christmas gathering for us. So they brought hot chocolate, and we had a cookie decorating contest, and we had lots of games for the kids to play, and the mentors as well. And I think everyone had a great time with it. But one of the mentors was not able to come, but the mentee came. And at the end, they were cleaning up and everything, and they made a cup of hot chocolate and a cookie for their mentor. And so I helped carry that down. And as we were walking, they're explaining to me that they put the initial of their mentor on the trunk of the Christmas tree. And to me, it was just, I mean, I thought that was just the coolest thing to see, that they took the time to share this event with their mentor, even though they knew that their mentor wasn't going to be there. So it's just, those kind of stories are just, I don't know, I think that's why I do this, is because I just know the value of relationships, and I've seen it.
The district has been able to make some steps toward avoiding students dropping out, Sean.
Yes. So this, again, like Lisa said, this all came about from our district, among many other districts who were identified as a higher than expected dropout rate probably 3 or 4 years ago. And through this group that we meet, it's called the GRIP group, Lisa found this Check and Connect program. And again, I know Lisa doesn't toot her own horn once in a while, but I would say this Check and Connect program has been an extreme success. We've had so many students who would have dropped out, but because of these connections that they're making with their mentors, we have so many success stories, to the point where Lisa actually had to present, or was invited to present, at a national conference in Minnesota in September, and now we'll be going to a state convention in February. So we're doing a lot of great things, and obviously and Steve has mentioned this, and the board as well, that connections with our students are so important.
Mm-hmm. I know there was a focus, and Steve and I have talked about that, about trying to have that connection with at least one staff member, whether it be custodial or food service or whatever the case might be.
We do the student surveys, those kinds of things, just because we know those relationships are so important.
Well, congratulations, Lisa. How did it feel to present on a national level?
Well, I have to say, when I first got up there, it was almost kind of like being a celebrity, the way they're like, oh, I've talked to you before, but I've never met you in person. So it was really exciting. But it was also exciting to hear what other districts are doing around the state, around the country. Just because Check and Connect is actually in some states, like it's a state initiative, and so they have to implement it throughout their entire state in all schools. So it's really interesting to hear just the differences throughout the country in regards to how the program is implemented.
And when do you give another talk then?
In February, we're presenting at the Transition Conference in the Dells.
Okay. So looking forward to that. What are some things that you bring up at when you talk to the group?
Well, we just talk about in general how we started the program, how we implemented it, how we recruited mentors, how many students, and the forms that we're using and all of that, because there are certain criteria within the program that the mentors do have to do on a weekly, monthly basis, and that is part of the fidelity of the program. So just doing as what the program is written as, and so there's certain things that are required by the mentors.
How are things going at the former East Hall this year for your school, your charter school?
I think it's going great, but certainly Mr. Board can address that. But I hear glowing remarks from community people all the time, and the students there are certainly flourishing. So
numbers are good, Steve?
Agree.
Absolutely. Well, we've intentionally, held our numbers down. We wanted to make sure that we were successful in that partner program, partner school. Started off with 12 in year one. We're up to 25 this year, hoping to expand that a little bit. But it's been fantastic. I continue to hear community members, community business owners that had the group down or members of the partner school down, and we're just so impressed with the way that they communicated, the way that they acted, and just had an entirely different mindset. And so, again, those connections that we've got trying to get developed within our school, we're also trying to develop that within our community. And that's what the partner school has really done, is gotten those students in connections with different folks in our community in areas of their interest, and it's just been outstanding. And again, I'm hoping we can continue to grow that. I'm hoping that we eventually have a space problem, right? And but that has really been a difference. I know that we've had school districts around our area reach out. How have you done that? What are you doing there? Because they've heard good things about it as well. And it really is. It's special to see. I mentioned at the start of the show, we have to continue to try to find ways to meet students where they're at through creative and alternative programming, and all of the things that these two individuals provide for our students from a pupil services perspective. I know they're both too humble to take credit for it, but great things don't happen without really great people leading the way, and these two truly do a great job of leading our pupil services. Just think about it. It's presenting at a national conference. That is really a big deal. And she said they treat you like a celebrity, but the truth of the matter is you are a celebrity in that field, right? And she's an expert in that field. We've done a great job in our school district in that field. That's a credit to Lisa, obviously with Sean's support, but this was her baby, and I don't want that to go unnoticed, that she's put a lot of work into this, and it's successful because of the passion that she's put into it, and then we can all see the impact that it makes. And I try to remind our staff from time to time, but it really can't be said enough. Whether you are a teacher, whether you're an administrator, whether you are a food service worker, custodian, nurse, guidance, a school counselor, IT, whatever it is, never ever underestimate your ability to make an impact on a student. And every single day matters, right? And we have to be there for our students, and we have to continue to reach out and make those connections to those students, because we never know what they're really going through. We talked about students that are going through homeless situation. You think about meeting basic needs, food, shelter, those kinds of things. And we have students that don't have those needs being met. And so if we can provide that connection and help students through the school district, then we're doing more than just educating them academically. We're educating them for life. And I just think that that's powerful and impactful, and something I don't take for granted.
We appreciate you all coming in here today.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Here's to a good second semester, right?
You bet. We hope so. Thanks, Phil.
We'll talk to you in February then. So, Steve Board, Richland School District Superintendent, along with Sean Josem, Director of Special Education in the district, and Lisa Goff, school psychologist, on today's morning show.